Awesome. Welcome, everybody. Wednesday night, which means time for the Dev Talk Show. It is Wednesday, August the 10th here, out here on the East Coast where I am. Hopefully breaking through the heat wave here. Looking forward to some not 90-degree days coming up tomorrow. And I think we had a little bit of that today. It was still a little warm, but not to the 90s point. But I am joined here by my colleague and co-host, Chris Gomez. Chris, how we doing?
Doing good, Rich. And you're right. We went for an early morning walk, and even though it was early, it was getting hot already. And so I heard the news that we are headed for a cool down, which is good news for us. So
Definitely.
very happy about that.
Yeah, that's we're into August. This kind of weather is kind of expected, but it is nice to just get out of it every now and then. So
Yeah.
you can only spend so much time in the AC.
Yeah. So speaking of which, speaking of, let's try this transition. Speaking of getting out of the AC, except that this would still be going back into the AC. A lot of folks who know us know that this whole thing started because of our time at Philly.net, and I understand it is time to spread the word that Philly.net is coming back to the Malvern MTC.
It is. I saw Bill sent a note out this morning around dates and getting back in there. So I think we're looking at September 21st is the first session.
Yeah, I do have the dates.
Don't the September date is wrong. So
Is it?
Bill and I already talked. Yeah. So September 21st is the third Wednesday. So we're going to keep that same Philly.net schedule, right? Third Wednesday will be the normal meeting. So 2-hour-long sessions, a little bit of break in between, but kicking back off, for 6 o'clock on a Wednesday night in Malvern.
Yeah. And I think there's some work to do to make sure this is all going to happen.
Yeah.
It probably means you're going to be busy, but besides the physical meetup in person, we're heading back to streaming it live.
Yeah.
And so we'll be able to. We've still got a couple weeks. We'll let the folks who watch our show know when that is. And Philly.net used to be our lead-in.
Yeah, that was how we started our evening. Had some good Primo's hoagies, and and that when everybody else left, we went downstairs and we did the show. I think we're still going to do something like that, go downstairs and do the show. But the question that I'm trying to figure out is where is the right place to do that, because our studio got turned into a conference room. So
yeah,
those things happen.
I guess that happens after a couple years. Because our last show in there was it February 2020? Were we in there? I don't remember for sure.
I think we made it to March. I believe there was a March 13th.
Barely
date.
Get into March.
Yep.
Yeah.
But,
and then transitioned to this format you've seen for a couple years now, where we come to you from maybe our own home or I think sometimes you've been at the office. Maybe, I'm not sure. I don't know.
I know we've traveled. I've done a couple I was in meetings. Over in different places, and that might have been just prior to everybody going home for pandemic. I think it was February of 2020 we did that one. So
right.
Yeah. I got some gear that I'm playing around with so that we can, instead of bringing everything that we have here, just I have a little box that I connect a couple of HDMI connections to, whether it's cameras or PCs or whatever, and use that as a mobile switcher and streaming deck. So we'll see how that works. So far, it's been pretty fun.
Yeah, because a lot of Andy isn't here tonight. He will be back.
Yep.
And I think that he's a big part of the Tech Bash conference, which we talk about on this channel sometime. And I think you've been talking about maybe doing some unique stuff at Tech Bash. So I'm looking forward to what can happen there too. So
yeah, and that was part of the reason for kind of researching that mobile live streaming component, because I knew we were going to have user groups. We're going to have us being able to support a show out there, and then also doing some awesome things at Tech Bash. So all of that is still in the works, but Tech Bash is coming up soon in November. We'll have the first Philly.net in September, and then us probably, if not that same night, then maybe a week or so before as we test it out. But yeah, it's coming together pretty nicely, getting everybody back in person, which we sorely miss.
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. So before we get into our topic tonight, which is durable functions, Azure functions, is you had some announcements queued up that I had my screen shared over in Skype, but then I realized that you probably have this ready to go much better than I do.
Yeah, actually, well, almost. Let me just see how quick if I.
Almost ready to go. So I haven't switched over yet, but yeah, there's a couple cool things to be aware of, including heck what went on yesterday. Full day conference, tons of videos being I don't want to say like so it live streamed on YouTube. I don't know if we're gonna get to it. Let's start with what you've got, and then we'll
Gotcha.
whenever you're ready, and then we'll talk about whatever I was thinking about, and and then we can get into our topic. So I haven't gotten a chance to check. Uh, I'm still kind of logging our system into the chat and everything, so I can keep an eye what's going on there. So definitely, if you're watching us live, don't hesitate to reach out with any questions you have tonight, any comments. If you know durable functions and want to give us some help, please help us out. We don't pretend that we know absolutely everything. That's why we have the show.
Or that we know anything. But
So,
there's.
yeah, right. The reason we had the reason the show started is because we used to stay after Philly.net to learn and talk and teach each other. And then we said, boy, this seems like a conversation other people might want to be a part of. So,
And we're kind of right.
yeah, kind of.
So can you see my screen?
No, I've seen the Skype, just the Skype logo.
Oh, hang on. How about now?
There we go. There it goes. And so if you're ready,
Yep. Yeah, let's go ahead and do it. So
I'll transition over here. There we go.
this is Dev Blogs. We talked about this before, but a lot of great information kind of pops up onto here. One of the things that I certainly wanted to mention was this, which is .NET MAUI coming into Visual Studio 2022. So this is an update that basically pushes or gives the ability to do MAUI projects now inside of the full version and not having to use the preview version of Visual Studio. So if you get the 17.3 update and you select the little control down there for, let me just scroll into this, there we go, select .NET Mobile Platform App UI Development, or MAUI for short. This will put all of those components and projects into Visual Studio so that you can go ahead and take advantage of those and build out those .NET MAUI projects. We've done a couple of shows about .NET MAUI. I know you guys did an intro or kind of an introductory one. We did one where we tried to build against a Dev Talk Show API.
Yep.
So we've had a little bit of experience in kicking the tires on it, and
Yep.
it's actually in the formal version for people to start using.
Yeah, and when we were playing with it here on the show, it was in the preview version of Visual Studio.
Yep.
And now here we are in the generally available Visual Studio 2022, which so Visual Studio 2022 or Visual Studio is super easy to try out and get your hands on. And maybe we'll go over that when we start talking about the software tonight, because I think it might be nice to just quickly go over, for folks maybe who are joining for the first time, Visual Studio is one option. Visual Studio Code's another, and then there are even others beyond that.
Mm-hmm.
But just to show people how easy it is, it's actually not, like, times have changed, where it used to be, oh, Visual Studio, that's that really expensive thing, and there are a lot of other options now that are not.
Yep.
So
yeah, definitely. That would be good to talk through. Well, cool. Let me see. Was there one other in here? I, there was an update that I was looking for, or one of the um, post that I thought that would be really cool. Okay, this would be interesting. I haven't read through this, but I'll throw one more out there. But essentially, if you're interested in doing .NET MAUI, and I kind of buried the lead because I jumped right into the articles as opposed to yesterday being the .NET Conf focused on .NET MAUI with some of all of the goodness that you can do there. So there's a whole bunch of sessions throughout the course of the day that were all around those .NET MAUI capabilities and getting started and things of that. And I'm sure that's where maybe what you're going to bring up, Chris. But for this here, I think mentioned if you're interested in doing something with .NET MAUI, looks like we have a bit of let me just make sure snippets.
Did I lose your mic there? No, probably not. You're not
No,
saying
sorry.
anything. No.
It
You
looks
just
like
weren't
you
saying
can.
anything.
Yeah, I just trying to bring this in real quick because I thought it was really cool and it looked almost like a contest, but it is a way to kind of um, share designs and potentially get some cool things like stickers. So I would let's see. Yeah, looks like there. So exactly. So this is information here on how you would go ahead and participate in this. So if you're interested in building .NET MAUI and you want to play around with some of the cool looking UI components that are there, then this would be a way to kind of do a give get, right? To get some get some training around it, getting a little, maybe get some stickers as well if you submit over here.
Whoops. I may have
Is that
just
you?
blasted people. Yeah, I may have blasted people with that. There. What I was trying to do was get the dot. So we were just talking about the .NET Comp focus on Maui, which I think we'll show some more links to in a second.
Mm-hmm.
And it turns out, don't do it again, please. Okay, cool. It turns out that there is a playlist on YouTube forming, maybe almost finished, with all of the talks and everything that went live yesterday. I'll make sure to show that, and it's already making its way into the show notes. That if you're watching on YouTube right now, I update them live sometimes. Uh,
Nice. Look at you
so
go.
the thing about it though is what I have noticed is that sometimes you have to like you know how F5, most people know that F5, at least on PCs and maybe on Linux or something, and I'm not sure what it is on Mac, will refresh your browser, but it won't. But Control F5 says like clear the cache, and I've noticed sometimes I have to do that. I have to be a little more aggressive on YouTube. So like I just saved those links up there, and the YouTube playlist for .NET MAUI is going into the Twitch chat. So basically, let me go ahead and share my screen and we can talk over some of these links. So all I got to do is share, and then
There we go.
what's going on here? There we go. A little better. I think I was on a I was on a cache screen there for a little bit. So who knows? But we should be better now. I think that should be coming up on the stream too. Oh, actually I got to change it. There we go. Okay. So I was in some place where it had cached. OBS will do that, right? It'll cache the last stream. I wonder if there's a way I can shut that off. So, what are we showing off? Here we go. .NET
There we
Comp
go.
Focus on Maui. There is a YouTube playlist. Already exists. I'm not going to tell you this is 100% complete. It may be. It may be. The full streamed event is here at the bottom, the full 8 hours. It may be cut up here, but I don't know if they're done. I want to be totally fair to the people that are working very hard to bring this playlist out just, less than 24 hours after the event finished. But the Focus on Maui event, the agenda for it is still live at focus.netconf.net. And so really, the way you go here is let me just try and see if I can get there very quickly. There's links here in the Twitch chat. There's also links down below if you're watching this in the future. The only thing about it is, even if you are watching in the future, I suspect, so I think I had to say focus. Maybe it was focus.netconf. I think if you're watching in the future, the only thing that might happen here is I could see this site getting repurposed for the next focus event.
Yeah.
So if you hit the focus.netconf.net and you go to agenda, you will see everything that was talked about yesterday. But I would almost suggest, better off at this point, even a day later, head to the YouTube playlist. And just because this will be here. This is not going anywhere. So, and don't forget, we are at youtube.com/the Dev Talk Show. And so that's a wrap for that.
Yeah.
And I guess the next place to go is let me find this. This is what I wanted to find. Is the durable functions page in the docs.
Excellent.
So we talk about the title of this show is Durable Functions, long-lived Azure Functions. I was kind of riffing on long-lived Azure Functions, but they're long-lived. But are they long-lived? That's not really necessarily true. But an Azure function is a function as a service. I think that's a fair definition. Stop me if I ever say anything that we should tweak. It's a function as a service where instead of writing a whole entire application, you write some bit of code that, based on a trigger that you define, your code gets activated. If it was an HTTP trigger, then your code could read the HTTP request and then act on it, maybe returning some result. There are some crafty people who develop entire APIs, or even in some ways you could probably even build some web pages all entirely out of Azure Function HTTP triggers. But that's not the only thing you might do. Maybe you want to write an application, or maybe you have applications today where you are paying attention to data being loaded into a database or a table, or maybe some file being uploaded, or you want to have some actor that acts when a message comes across that says do something. Well, there are triggers in Azure Functions to act on queues, to act on additions to storage, or additions to tables. And so there's all kinds of ways that you can trigger these little bits of code. And we're going to see that in a little bit, I think, because the gateway to durable functions is an Azure function. But a durable function is when you say, what if I need state? Because by definition, these Azure functions are pretty stateless, right? Message comes in, I do something, then I go away.
Right.
Yeah.
I that's one of the, so you hit the nail on the head there. That's one of the big differences between regular functions and durable functions. The other thing to think about with the durable function, it's can be, because it maintains state, it can actually do like a workflow where not only can it have that trigger as you mentioned, but it can actually do certain types of work, essentially, where it can fan out and fan back in to be able to process information. It can trigger off other functions. So the durable function might call a function which gets that information back and then uses that information to call a second function. So they are very similar because they're workflow. They're very similar to something else we have in Azure called logic apps. And you can almost look at those side by side and say, well, I've got two different ways of running workflows here.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So what's neat about this page that I brought up here is I actually bookmarked this page after I started working with durable functions, because besides just kind of your boilerplate, what are durable functions, and then what is supported, and you can see you have different language stacks supported. for durable functions. But then you don't have to go very far to just start seeing that. Yeah, they say, hey, here are some patterns, and you mentioned different patterns. One of them is just one of the first pattern they list here is like function chaining. Is let's say instead of something might not trigger just the need for one function to be called, but perhaps functions called in sequence, even relying on the input and output of previous work. So in a typical Azure function, this isn't, it's not that you can't do this. It's just that you got to build it all. You'd have to build that whole workflow yourself, right? You might kick things off by having a first function listing to a queue, and then sure, maybe it writes an answer to another queue, which a second function picks up, and a third function picks up, and a fourth function picks up. But I'm sure what happened is that folks who created this stuff said, that pattern is pretty generic, and what if we just gave it to you instead of you having to go implement it? So
Mm-hmm.
the function chaining pattern is one way where you basically say, hey, I write a durable function that calls other activities in an order, and maybe even makes decisions based on what's happening. I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of stuff you could do. They show an example here in C# where they say, hey, here's a durable function that all it does is say, well, I'm going to call the first function, and F1 that's another activity. It's an Azure function that's got an activity trigger instead of your typical queue trigger, or we talked about the other triggers earlier, queue or web call or something. And when that one is done, then take the answer from it, because it's going to return some X, and let's pass it in to function call number 2. And that's going to return some Y, and let's pass it in to number 3, and that'll return some Z, and then let's pass that into function number 4, and whatever that is, let's return that to the original caller that was interested in the result of this whole entire chain of functions. So, and you don't have to use C#. The code doesn't look all that different in JavaScript, and doesn't look all that different in Python. And that's what's cool, I think. I like when I have been crossing the streams on the docks, I
Mm-hmm.
say what I kind of like about this is that you you can squint at each one and see the same thing.
Yeah, you definitely can. I think one of the things that probably the biggest difference between C# and the other language is the method declaration across the top, right? So
Mm-hmm.
being able to have those input output bindings happen at that level, as opposed to being off in the function.json, which I think is where they put them in the other languages.
Yeah, I think you're right that perhaps it's that way for the rest of them. I'm not 100%. Yeah, I think you're right. Maybe not. Maybe not here because here we have an attribute, a
Mm-hmm.
Java-based attribute.
Oh, there you go. Okay,
So, and I think it's
interesting.
because you've got attributes in Java, right? So,
Yeah, yeah. I
so
mean,
that's
C#
cool.
and Java are quite similar.
Yeah, so that's cool. Second, you mentioned fan out and fan in, which is definitely a case where, for whatever reason, they show an example here where you come into a function, which then maybe does some work and then goes to the fan out, which is, but I don't think it has to be this way. The point is, you have multiple things that can be done in parallel. So you do
Mm-hmm.
them in parallel, but you wait. What the orchestration's power is it has the ability to wait for everything to finish. Where if you
Exactly.
built this yourself, you would have to basically say, okay, I mean, the infrastructure to that actually is much more complicated than the first example to build yourself. Is I got to signal all these three things to go, and then they're all going to write somewhere that kicks off something, but then now I've got to manage that state in a stateless way of, are all three done? Is only one of them done? Should I kick off the final, wrap up? And here it looks so much simpler.
Yeah.
Instead, it is, hey, I need a list of tasks that in this case all happen to return an int, and who knows what they are. And then you basically say, so let's go ahead and call these activities, and what this is doing is in their particular example, they're showing an F1 that is matching this in their diagram. where they're saying, for whatever reason, function one is giving back an array of stuff to work on. Now, maybe in your example that could have come in to the original, to the orchestration. It doesn't matter. The point is, the heart of the fan out is here, where we are saying, let's create a task. Let's call each activity with each item to work on. Let's call an activity. Let's create a task. Let's add them to a list of tasks. And then our old friend, the task when-al function, which existed before durable functions, let's just say, hey, can you just let us know when all the tasks are done? And when they're done, now I have all these different tasks and I can do some work to finish things off. But the heart of it is right here. So that's
That
a
is,
cool one.
yeah. And one of the examples of, I think it falls into this pattern here, but there's, if you think about, I have a batch of files that I'm waiting for, and maybe they're all organized by some kind of identifier that, prefixes the file name. Think of, I'm watching files that are getting dropped into a storage area or a blob storage, and I'm looking for files and every time a file gets dropped there, the durable function gets triggered. But what it's doing is that it is waiting for some number of files that are essentially all related to each other because they have the same identification at the beginning of it, some ID number. And the durable function is the way to do that. It's going to maintain state, and every time a new file comes through, it's going to look up and say, is this one of the ones I'm waiting for? Nope. Okay, go back to sleep.
Yep.
So that's definitely a relevant use case that we've had conversations with customers about.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, so they talk about this pattern. This is similar to a pattern I've needed. It's described here, the async HTTP API pattern of addresses the problem of coordinating long-running operations with external clients, which is like this really fancy language for saying, hey, what if, if you want to implement the pattern of somebody calling you to say start some work, and then you telling it come back to me for status, you can implement that with a durable function, because the durable function, they don't show code here, but when you look at the diagram, the durable function would manage the orchestration of somebody calls in, here's some work to do. So we say, okay, do work activity, go ahead and get work going, and write your progress to some data store. I know they're showing the typical database symbol here, but it doesn't really matter. And start is also saying, hey, I'm going to let the world know I started. But this allows someone else to come in on a status endpoint to ask how things are going, right?
Yeah.
And there isn't code with this one, which there is an example though, but I needed something similar to this, but almost in reverse, which is interesting. It was more about me wanting to start something, start a long running process, and then have the ability to query on it as it's going. It's instead of like I'm not doing the work, I'm asking something else to do the work, and then I want the durable orchestration to check in on it, which is
Okay.
similar to what's coming up, because that's
Okay.
this monitor, similar to this monitor pattern.
Yeah. Going back real quick
Yeah.
to that async HTTP API
Uh-huh.
one, that when you think about building out, microservices and having APIs be the layer where a lot of your interaction happens. Oftentimes, we think about, well, I have an API that I got to call, and that API has to call another API, and that API has to call another API, and you get this API chaining going on, which can be kind of an anti-pattern, right? You're having essentially waiting for data to come down, and that original API request is just waiting to all the other ones to, send the data back up the stream.
Right.
But this kind of a pattern here gives a way of having still some of that go and talk to those other API and separate out your into your microservices, but not have the API that started that call be bogged down waiting for that request to finish and send the data back down.
Right. Right. That became especially important. So the monitor is similar. It's funny, since I was talking about needing this in reverse, it's where monitor came in. So in this particular example, they're saying, you might poll until a specific condition is met, or you might use a timer trigger to check on something, or what else could you do? There's a lot of things you could do, but in their example here, what they do is they come in with some input, and they basically say, okay, we're gonna check every now and then on something, and they do that in this line of code here, get job status. That's some activity that must be going out and checking on how things are going, and it might return any number of strings, but one of the strings it might return is completed, to say like, yeah, it finished. And so this durable function is coming in here, and it's saying, okay, well, let's check on its status. It's not completed. Okay, let's hop past this, and oh, we're getting some code here to create a timer. So here's something you can do in a durable function, which is create a timer. You give it a time, and once this line of code is hit, the durable function goes to sleep until that time. So what's implemented here, what's happened here is we've come in and we've said, well, just as long as we haven't exceeded some grand timeout of the whole orchestration, let's go into this loop where we check for job status. If it's not completed, let's await a time, which here they're telling you add seconds polling interview. Let's say it was 120 seconds. So now a timer is set for 120 seconds, and what's going to happen is your durable orchestration, this durable function, just actually goes to sleep. You're not charged for it, right? It's not running. And then 120 seconds later, it is awakened. And what happens next? Well, we're going to go back to the top of the while loop, and we're going to check again for job status. And if it's not completed, we're going to do it again. And then eventually, we should be able to get out of this because job status is completed. I needed something similar to this because what I wanted to do is I wanted to be able to call an activity that started a job on some product. That could be anything you could imagine, any web service you could imagine. Except I don't want to sit and wait for that thing to finish, because it could be minutes, it could be hours. And there are time limits on Azure Functions, number one. But more importantly, if it's going to take an hour, let's just say there was no time limit on the function. If it was going to take an hour, I'm going to pay for an hour of compute to wait.
Right.
Like that's an anti-pattern, regardless of Azure Functions time limits.
Right.
So using a similar pattern to this, it's call the activity, sleep, and then when we wake back up, let's check on its status. And oh, it's still not done? Okay, let's sleep a little bit longer. And finally, like long-lived patterns, the last one they show here is this human interaction pattern. And in their example, there's an approval that a human manager or something actually approves. And if they don't do it in some amount of time, in this particular case, they're saying 72 hours, then some escalation activity starts. And this is just an example, but what it shows, what it's going to show here, I think, is that a durable function can wait for long periods of time. It can sleep for hours or days or months or however long you need. And that's the one thing that I really liked about this example is it shows you that I can come in and I can start this activity that says, let's wait for approval. But what if approval is some external system? Like maybe it's your ticketing system. I don't know. But
right.
What you can do in that ticketing system is maybe that ticketing system, when this thing is approved, maybe it has a webhook feature, which a lot of things do, where it will fire a web call to wherever you want. And that is the wait for external event, where it's a feature of durable functions where you can wait on the outside world to basically wake you back up. And so in this particular case, you can see there's kind of a race going on between the timeout and the approval. That's what task when any is doing, is it's saying, hey, has it been 72 hours or did the approval event came in? And when one of those two things happen, your durable function will be awakened. And in this particular case, if it was the approval that happened, then you can cancel that timeout so we don't have to come back anymore. And we can continue with the next part of the durable function, which is some other activity. But if that timeout is what happened first, we're going to slip into the else branch, and we're going to call this other activity, which who knows what it does, but I guess it escalates it over the manager's head. not super important what the activities do. It's the fact that you can do this.
Right.
So
Yeah. That's a very powerful use case there.
yeah. Yeah. It was specifically, I was talking about my call another product and wait. There was call another product and wait, but check on how things are going, which is very similar to this. Except that when it's over, you're going to want to loop back around. But it's kind of like, okay, we think the product's going to call us back with an answer, but you know, the internet being what it is, what if the product makes the web call and it fails and it doesn't recover? But I still have a status call that I can make so that no, I'm not getting the answer up to the second, but maybe I'm getting it 2 minutes later of, oh, you know, that thing actually finished. Or, oh, that thing actually failed. And that way you're not stuck saying like, well, I never got a call, and you're just dead in the water. So I thought it was cool. I liked this page. I linked to it in the Twitch chat. It should be up in our YouTube page as well, down below in our show notes. These are great ways to start thinking about it, but it's not showing any code, so maybe we should do that.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
Yeah, maybe we should do that. So,
oh, there you go.
I've got some stuff here, but that's not what we're looking for. I want to see, do I have... I think I'm going to have to open up another one. I'm going to start in Visual Studio 2022.
Okay.
I think we can also look at this in code, as VS Code as well, because there's some slight differences, and it's kind of interesting. So Visual Studio 2022, if you use Visual Studio, so this is something I know because I was working on some of this stuff right on the straddle point of when 2022 was just coming out and VS 2019 was still there. You can do all of this in VS 2019. You can. I'm going to make a personal recommendation and just from my own personal use. And what's great about this is, right, like I don't work for Microsoft, so I'm telling you my experience using it in the field is I was so happy to switch because in 2019 everything's hooked up, but you know, you go and you select the Azure workload, which gets you all the Azure Functions stuff, and it uses the Azure Storage Emulator, which has been the storage emulator for a very long time. But in 2022, they have switched to the open source. I don't know how to say this correctly, but I think it's Azurite, Azurite. They've switched to that, and that is the storage emulator going forward. So any chance you get to use that over the previous storage emulator is great. And the thing I liked about it is that if you install VS 2022, you pick the Azure workload, everything is just set up for you. Visual Studio Code, it's pretty good, but and I don't even want to say but, it's a really good experience, but I thought I was going to have to set more stuff up. I'm going to have to get the storage emulator going, all that. No. It just all works. So we're going to see that.
Oh, cool.
They even install the Azure Function core tools for you in Visual Studio 2022. You can install all this stuff yourself. And in fact, a few weeks ago on this show, when I was the only one here, Rich, if you remember that show, I wanted to set up my Azure, I wanted to set up my Linux VM and do some development. And so I got durable functions running, and except that the only thing was I had to install some stuff myself in NPM. It wasn't that hard. In fact, it was really great. Really great experience, I thought. So in any case, is that your Bing message that went across?
That wasn't what I thought I was pasting. I thought I was pasting the
wah, wah.
yeah. I don't know how to get rid of it now.
So I don't know that we can. Oh, actually, that's not true. That's not true. I feel like it could probably be moderated in some way.
You'd think one of us would be a moderator.
I don't want to ban Rich Ross Dev. That's not the move I'm looking for. I want to. Boy, I'm surprised that I can't easily figure out how to delete.
Yeah. What the heck? All right. I will. I probably have to go into Stream Manager. I will take care and do that. So I will let you keep going. Sorry.
No, it's fine. It's fine. Actually, you're right. There is a mod view that I needed to pick up, right? And then I'm not exactly sure what to do there. So, in any case, how do you get started? Well, how do we start things in Visual Studio? File new project, right? And
Can't go wrong there.
there's a template you could search for. It's the Azure Functions template. Um, let's go ahead and search for it. So Azure Functions, it's got a lot of, it doesn't necessarily have to be, well, anyways, if I pick this template, the template to create an Azure Function project, this is going to help me create a C# version of the product. Functions can be done in a lot of different languages, as we saw earlier. And let's say I call this durable functions. I think that solution name might be available. And I click next. I'm going to get some questions here. What kind of function am I creating? Now, we talked a lot about Azure Functions today. They can be kicked off from many different things, from Blob, Cosmos DB, Event Grid, Event Hub, an HTTPI trigger, from Kafka, Q, RabbitMQ. Like, there's all kinds of different triggers to get an Azure function going. But in order to create a durable function, I want to pick this durable functions orchestration. Okay, so I want to pick that.
Okay.
And then I'm going to go ahead and leave selected use Azurite, the new storage emulator, for your runtime storage. So I'll go ahead and click create. And I went ahead and stuck with .NET 6 long-term support, right? Not that I just wanted the latest. I wanted the latest.
Yep.
And what I get is I get this code file. It's loading up. It's basically .NET restoring and whatever and doing all that fun stuff. And then complaining that Azurite is running, which I have run into this before. And the reason why it's running is because it's running. So let's kill that. And I'm wondering if I have to actually kill Azurite. It's possible that I do. So what it tries to do, the first thing that Visual Studio tries to do, and which you can kind of see down here in the output, is it checks to make sure your Azure Function core tools are up to date. And then it tries to start the emulator. And this is before you even run any code. That's just what it tries to get that ready for you. So that sort of begs the question, this is actually Azurite running here. So let's make sure we stop that. Is what are the Azure Function core tools? Because that little nugget was interesting to me. And here I am just in regular old PowerShell. Used to be called PowerShell Core. It turns out that Visual Studio also installs the Azure Function Core Tools, which you are free to install on your own. They're available on an NPM. I don't remember if there's an MSI. I don't remember how else you can get them. But look at this. If you type the word func, you've got this Azure Functions Core Tools app that responds to commands. You can create your project from here. And you can also interact with your functions project from here, which I wasn't too aware of until recently. So I found this really cool in that you could now, we're in Visual Studio, and Visual Studio is going to manage this for us. But if you weren't in Visual Studio, the functions core tools can be used to start the runtime, your local runtime, to even send commands to the durable function as though you were, pretend that you're an external event, pretend that you're the starter. You can do all that cool stuff. And you can even create your new app from here. For example, I'm in the source folder here. Let me make a new folder, and I'm just going to call it test node durable. Let's just call it that, and let's get over to test node durable. And now that I'm in here, in func, I was going to get help anyway. I can say create a new function app in the current folder. I thought, well, that's kind of cool. So func init, and I can even say like, well, what do I want? What do I what should these? Do I really care about some of these other things here? Do I want a language specific project? Do I want a given target framework? And let's just you know what, for the heck of it, let's I guess I actually don't need any of these. I don't think I need any of these because I'm going to test making a node durable function. So let me just do func init. And it says, okay, what worker runtime do you want? And I'm just going to pick node just so it's different from what we're going to do in Visual Studio. Do you want JavaScript or TypeScript? Let's do JavaScript. And they say, okay, fine. And what do we end up with? We end up with a host.json file, a local settings JSON, a package JSON, but we don't have a function in here yet. We just have kind of like a project that's ready to go. And in fact, I can just code dot and boom, here I am in Azure Functions. I don't have a function yet, but if you have the Azure Functions extension installed, which I do, it detects it and it's like, hey, do you want me to set you up so that I can work with you? And I say, yeah, sure, I'm in JavaScript. And they say, okay, fine. And they set all this stuff up. So I could just start debugging, except I don't have any functions. Now, within Visual Studio Code, I've got stuff that I can use, the Azure Functions stuff to do more, to add functions and so on. But I want to stick with this cool CLI for a second. So there was another one here. Create a new function. So func new. And let's say the language is JavaScript, and then I give it a function name. Let's try that. I just thought this was so interesting. So func new, and we'll give it a name, and we'll say that this is hello node functions, and we'll say the language. Was it language? Was it language? It was language, but we're going to spell it correctly eventually. And the language was JavaScript, and you run that, and it says, well, you didn't give me everything I needed. How do I call you? Well, let's say that it's an HTTP trigger. Okay, fine. And they say, yeah, I made you a function. Okay, cool. Well, what does Visual Studio Code think about that? Oh, look, hello node functions, function.json, index, like it's all here.
Right.
So using the func command line, you can get to work, which I thought, I like that stuff. I think that's cool when there's CLI support.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
I know. So func init gives you the function app.
Right.
And then func new gives you the actual function inside of that function app.
Yes. So I could keep making functions, right?
Exactly.
Like, yeah. So, and then I think the function.json is where you basically say, so I'm actually not sure if in Node every function has to be in its own folder. I don't know. I'm not going to pretend that I know the Node side of this super well. But what I love about it is the code's not too complicated to figure out. I can get that a context is coming in and a request is coming in, and I can pull stuff out of the heck. They're even doing hello world, So when we come back to Visual Studio Code, maybe we'll try running this. But,
there you go. Okay.
But for now, you didn't have to do any of that if you are in Visual Studio. But what I'm not sure about, I don't know for sure, is because it couldn't start as you write a second ago. Let's see. I'm going to actually just go. This is a great learning experience for all of us. Let's just see what happens when I hit the go button in a second. But this is what a durable orchestration looks like in C#. That's this function here. You can identify that it's a durable orchestration. The way I identify it now that I've been working this for a while is I look for this. I just look for this orchestration trigger. And I say, if I see that, well, then this is the orchestration, which is to say, this is the workflow code, the code that will define do this, then do this, and do this. This is a very simple orchestration, as you can see, Rich, where it's just going to call each of that activity 3 times with different values. That's it.
Yep.
Yeah. So it's pretty straightforward. Now, what is it calling? Well, it's calling a function called function1 underscore hello, an activity function with that name. I kind of like that they did this in this example because it points out that the function name that functions cares about is this attribute and not so much the name of the function itself. So in the same class, we happen to have a function called say hello that has been decorated with the function name attribute, and that function name attribute is the attribute property, or the actual value. That's what it's going to call. So it's going to call this once and pass in Tokyo. It's going to call it again, pass in Seattle. Going to call it again, pass in London. And what you're saying here is you're saying, look, I'm an activity trigger that takes a string. Oh, and by the way, dependency injection, give me a logger. So that way, you can write out to the log, basically. So we can see that dependency injection works. This is method-based injection. This isn't coming from the class. So we're getting dependency injection support, which we can go take a look at that setup. And then the only other thing that we're seeing here is that, what's this third function? Well, this is a starter, because something has to kick off an orchestration. Now, you don't necessarily have to use an HTTP starter. That is one way to do it. I will say that I think it's often a very common way to do it. But your orchestration does not have to start from, it doesn't have to start from an HTTP trigger. So in this case, what we have here is a normal run-of-the-mill Azure function with an HTTP trigger that when you call this through dependency injection, it is getting a durable client, and then which they are calling starter. And then what they're saying is, okay, start a new orchestration. That's what this function does. Start new async. If you call it from the durable orchestration client, it starts a new durable function orchestration. And which one do we want to start? We want to start function 1. Okay, fine. Well, function 1, guess what? There it is, defined as an attribute up here. So that's how this whole thing works, is something calls this HTTP triggered Azure function, which then says, all right, I'm going to start the orchestration. And that's it. Sounds simple, right? So
it definitely does. But this is, I guess, meant to start things, and then you can go all kinds of different directions from here.
Yes, right. This is a pretty simple example. These functions don't have to live in the same file. Just, I think for simplicity they are here, but they don't have to. So let's see what happens if I run this. I am curious because I had Azure, the storage emulator, running. Is it gonna fire it up again for me? So I'm just gonna run it. I just kind of want to see, like, I'm rooting for the tooling here to say, like, yeah, sure, we'll start it for you. And in fact, I am getting another window that's popping up here. And what we're going to see is the Azure Functions core tools get started for me. And then it says, hey, I found this durable functions project, and it says I'm using a user secrets file configuration, and then I'm ready to go. I've got 3 functions available. I have an orchestration trigger. Basically what it's trying to tell you here is I have an orchestration function called function 1. I have some activity, which means, now I think I'm right about this, Rich. An activity trigger, you're always called by Azure by durable functions, right?
Yes, that's not one of those that would come from.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, that's one that would not come from the other triggers, essentially,
right.
like a blob or something like that.
Right. So when you see activity trigger, it's telling you this is an activity that's part of a larger orchestration. And then this is our starter, which to me, this reads more like your typical run-of-the-mill Azure function that happens to be HTTP triggered. That's all. Yep. So this is ready to go. Now, I believe that our Azure storage emulator is up and running. And what I'm going to do, because I don't remember how to start Task Manager anymore in Windows 11, is I am going to go ahead and do the Control-Alt-Delete method. I've got to figure out. I bet you it's right-clickable in here.
Windows XK, right?
There it is. There it is. It was right-click. I could have done that. You're right. But instead of Task Manager, we have Process Explorer from sysinternals. And there's a reason why I have it. There's a reason I have it. Because I wanted to show that if I head down to... Boy, I got a lot of stuff running on my system. If I head down to DevEnv, Visual Studio 2022, what we're going to see is DevEnv has got a lot of stuff going on. But... Oh, where are you? The last time I did this, Azure was in here. Oh, wait. Oh, here's another DevEnv. Oh, I have multiple. I'm sorry. I have multiple. I have multiple Visual Studios going. So why don't we alphabetize these? I expect to find Azure right in here because I did earlier. Wouldn't that be something if I don't? Oh, but now that I've switched that, they're not threaded anymore. Oh no. Oh no, I don't know how to use process. I don't know how to use well, maybe Azure Write's not running. That could be
Hmm.
the real culprit. Okay. So, if it's not running, this isn't going to work. But that's okay. We're learning something here. I really do. I really the moral of the story is I started Visual Studio while Azure Write was running in out of Visual Studio Code. So crossing the streams there may not have been expected by like the tooling team, right? So
Hmm.
I want to see this. I want to see what happens. Not because I'm trying to break stuff. I just want to see. So let's do something else. Let's open another folder. Just because I want to show something here. Right here, I have this file that I want to look at here. So this is a file that I just call, it's got a .http extension. And what I'm going to do is let's get our Azure Functions window since it's running right now. Where did that window go? I know I didn't lose it. You have to be here somewhere. Here you are. Okay. So let's get this URL because it is triggered by an HTTP call. Let's come back up here and let's, oh, maybe it's the same exact URL. Nope, it's not. So 7155 API function one underscore HTTP start is what I want to call. Well, I don't know if you've seen this, Rich.
Mm-mm.
I've got an extension here called REST client.
Okay.
There are other extensions like this. I have this one called REST client that I decided to use today. Other times you folks have seen me use the Thunder REST client. But this extension, there's something I kind of like about this for today. I think it's cool. So it's a REST client for Visual Studio that if you name your file HTTP, it's not the only way to do this, but if you do name it HTTP, then it picks that up. And it says, oh, you put a URL in here. I'm going to add this little send request button. Hopefully people can see that pretty well.
Hmm. Yep.
So let me close the extensions window so we can see it. Now all I have to do is click that. And oh, well, it started. It's starting. So I don't know. Let's see if it works. It works. If it complains about the storage emulator not being up, which it's not complaining about, so don't listen to me. But what's cool is I got a little REST client that I could save this stuff off as a file. So I could like save off all kinds of different calls just in one spot. And I get my response over here. I can see exactly what a durable function starter returns to you. And it returns
Hmm.
quite a bit of stuff when the durable function starts. It tells me like, oh, by the way, if you want to send an external event, here's your URI. If you need to shut me down, do you need to restart me? So that's, do you want to get the status on how I'm doing? Let's go ahead and do that. Let's get the status. Now, I don't believe the status is going to come back because I'm at a breakpoint. So let let that thing kick back off. I'm at a breakpoint because my orchestration is on its way. So I'm going to go ahead and let that run. And I should get my answer, I hope. Maybe it didn't finish. Or wait. Oh, it might not have had enough time. Okay, fine. I still want to see it, though. So we're going to let that kick off. And this is going to finish the first time. We're not going to get a whole lot of it, but I wanted to see. Yes, okay. So I called that, and I guess I didn't get to it until after the orchestration completed. And
Right.
what's happening here is it is telling me, hey, your instance, which is a GUID, it's done. Nothing was passed in, and then but there was a result. Those 3 strings in an array in a list, and that's cool. I think that's cool. So like I can monitor this externally if I write some code there. We didn't really get to watch the durable function go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kick that off again. And you know the emulator must be working because under the hood, the durable functions framework the reason it's called durable is because it can survive things like restarts and network partitions and stuff, because it's writing stuff out to durable storage. It's writing things out to like queues and to storage to say like, here's where you are in this function. So I kick the function off again. This start new async is going to fire off the orchestration. And now what I want to do is I want to watch what happens. So our orchestration context, we are now going to run this orchestration. And the way it kicks off is it kicks off by saying, let's create a new blank list of strings. That's easy enough, right? Let's see if I can. Yeah, there it is, just a list of strings. Let me pin it, in fact, so we can look at that a little bit later. Then it says, okay, let's go call function one hello and let's pass in Tokyo. So I'm going to actually go ahead and put a breakpoint in here, because when I F10 this to go through it, we're going to jump down here just like you would expect. I'm sure anyone would expect this. We have called this activity. We passed in Tokyo, so here it is. Here's Tokyo right here. Let's get that pinned so we can watch it next time. And all we're really doing is we're just writing out to the log that we're saying hello to Tokyo, and we're returning a string, an interpolated string that just says hello Tokyo. That's it. Not that special. If I run out to the window, we're going to see down at the bottom here saying hello to Tokyo. So we're in the middle of that orchestration right now. Well, since that function's returned, we should now expect to go back to the orchestration function with the next thing to do, right? That's what happens in code.
Right.
So let's go see. What really happened is I moved into the durable task framework, the code that sits behind this, but I'm going to F5 so that we see what's next. Well, wait a second. My breakpoint, I didn't come back to line 22, which is what you would have expected in any plain old C# code that you've written, or many other languages, right? I came back to the top of the orchestration function. And this is the first important lesson of durable functions. Your functions must be deterministic in nature, which is a fancy way of saying every time your durable orchestration restarts, the code actually runs from the beginning. But durable functions has some smarts to help itself out here. This context variable has a member called isReplaying, which I'm going to get out here for us to watch. It's set to true because the durable functions context history remembers I've already executed this line of code. Now, this line of code, it isn't super important that it's executed, because watch what happens after I pass it over. It's still 0. Okay? Durable functions it doesn't have a history for that outputs list. So even though the purpose of the outputs add method, so outputs is a method on list that has an add function to add a string, well, because it's a list of string, we thought we executed line 21 already. Why isn't there a hello Tokyo in here? Because we're running through the orchestration again. Now, if you'll notice, I'm on line 21. Does that make sense? I'm sorry.
No, you're good. You're good.
Okay. We're on line 21. The orchestration knows that it's run this line before because it's still replaying is still true. So when I F10 this, there's some magic kind of happening. It's not magic. It's actually the brilliance of the durable framework. What's happening under the covers is it's saying, hold on a second. You've already called context.calledActivityAsync, returning a string for function one hello with the parameter Tokyo. You've already called that, and I already know the answer because I saved that answer off. And that answer was hello Tokyo. So now our outputs list, it's beginning to be built. It has hello Tokyo in there. Because durable functions does is it remembers the result of this task.
Yeah. So if you were to, I know you're hitting F10 here,
Yeah.
and that's just going to basically go line by line by line.
Right.
When we come back through this again, if you did F11, we shouldn't move. We should go from, for the third time through this, line 21, line 22, and then we get to 23, and then we would go down into the function, right? I would think.
Oh, if I F11 from here, we'll go into this function, but I left a breakpoint here to make it easier.
Yes, I agree. But if we had done it at line 20, at line 21, we would not have gone into the function, right?
I think you're right, because first we would go into the durable task framework.
Right.
Is that what you were getting at? Yeah.
Exactly. So it's just to your point, like you said, we've already called this. I already know the answer.
Yeah.
There's no F11 to get into that function.
Right. Like if I F11 now, we're off to the durable task framework, and we'll be here a little while. So is it interesting to look through all this stuff? It might be, but, and I'm not saying that it shouldn't be, but what it's doing now is it's like checking. It's doing exactly what you said, is it's kind of figuring out, hey, have I been here already? You know? And
deja vu.
Yeah, and it gives you, the developer, this is playing is something you can reach in your code. You can say context.is is replaying. And I have seen some folks who write durable orchestrations that use that to their advantage to decide if code should maybe be reinitialized or not. I would try to submit that, see if you can stay away from having to really get deep into the orchestration and just try to write straightforward orchestrations. I'm still learning a lot about that, though, so I don't want to give too much guidance. It's just really interesting stuff. So we are going to go...
a little...
Yeah.
It feels a little... Yeah, you've got access to it, but is that really how you should be structuring your logic, right, inside of a durable function?
Right.
There may be a use case. To me, it seems like it's got to be a pretty darn good use case if you're going to try and do something like that.
Yeah. I will say one of the examples for the monitor pattern deeper in the docs, use it.
Okay.
But I'm not sure if I was thrilled about it. There's a lot to unpack there. So we're about to make our second call into say hello. So I guess maybe one of the ways to put this is that, logically speaking, you write your orchestration as though it is going to be called sequentially, but you have to be careful that you understand how it works so that you know that it's called sequentially and then called again sequentially and then called again sequentially, just so you don't use a construct that maybe isn't deterministic. Like, for example, don't generate a random number, because that's going to be different every time.
Yep. Good point.
Don't use the typical GUID generation tools. But since GUID generation is so important for cloud work, because we want some unique ID that we're pretty guaranteed is unique, like, everywhere, they have their own
nice.
safe context function, which we'll see in a little bit. So let's come in and say hello to Seattle. We've really beaten this quite a bit, and let's come back into the orchestration for the third time, where the orchestration knows that it's replaying, and yet we have an empty outputs list, which might seem a little weird to you, but the orchestration knows that it's called this before, so it's just, instead of going off and calling it again, it doesn't have to. It's just going to say, look, I already remember the answer when you called it was Hello Tokyo, and I remember the answer to this when you called it was where did we go? Oh, okay, is Hello Seattle. And so we now have two. We have two in our list, but we haven't called the third time yet. So when I hit F10 here, we're going to end up and say hello. We're going to call this for the first time. We're going to end up back in the orchestration with, once again, an empty list of strings. But this time through, all three of these functions have been called. We have our results. The durable functions task framework, or the durable task framework, I think that's what it's called under the covers, is going to fill out our outputs method. And after all of that, we're going to return to the caller an array or a list, hello Tokyo, hello Seattle, hello London. And that's it. I mean, that seemed like, it seemed like the long way around. Sorry that Visual Studio Code there keeps coming back up, but let's get the Azure Functions tools.
Hmm.
And if we look at the log says, hey, I executed function hello. And then I went back and executed the orchestration. And then that finished by calling function one hello again with Seattle. And then I went back and executed the orchestration and I called London. And then I went back and executed the orchestration. So you can see that happening here.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah. It was neat to watch it work, but it was a real eye opener. Like, oh, this, you got to be careful. I can't come in here and say var, some GUID equals new GUID. Or what is it? Is it new? I forget how this works. It is GUID, right? Isn't there?
Yeah.
Yeah, there we go. Using system.gwid. And then let's just say I go ahead and turn it into a string. I think I get a warning for this, but I'm not positive. I think I do. But what if I change this around to say, like, what if my activity function, what if I wanted it to be the same GUID every time, so that I would say orchestration, I know orchestrations have their own ID, but I'm trying to prove a point here, is I wanted the orchestration to not just take Tokyo, but I also wanted it to show I'm delivering the same piece of context every time, this GUID. So how would I do that in this case? Well, I can only pass one thing. I think I'm right about this. I believe call activity async, object input, I can only pass one thing.
Yep.
So I either now need to either go create a complex type, like some C# class, or I can do one of my favorite things and say, let's pass a tuple. so let's do that. Let's because a tuple is one thing. So let's pass a tuple. By the way, if you're joining us late, what you are seeing is not how to generate GUIDs in a durable function, but this should prove some points. Right. I just want to make sure that folks that are watching right now, you turn away for a few seconds and you say, "Oh, Chris said that all I got to do is just pass a GUID, right?" Not going to work. So identifier expected. Oh, because the tuple itself needs a name. So we've got our input that takes a name and it takes a GUID. And now I've got to change this function a little bit. Let me get rid of the breakpoint so we can see it a little more clearly. We're still going to say hello to name, but it's going to be input.name because it's coming from the tuple on GUID. And let's say input.GUID. Now, and we got to change this to say hello input.name. So you can see what I'm doing to get around. I don't know if I'm really getting around, but to get by the limitation that I can only pass one object as input to the activity, I said, well, let's use awesome C# tuple support, way better than the old tuple support, because what I want to show is I think this isn't going to do what we want. All right. So let's first I got to stop. Oh, I wonder if I can hot reset this.
Yeah.
Oh, let's try it. Sometimes it works. Not this time. All right. So I have used that. But it didn't work today. So that's fine.
On a durable function?
I have used hot reload on a durable function, but let me tell you, pretty minor changes.
Nothing like this.
Yeah. Okay, so what are we complaining about here? We are saying that I did not, I needed one more parenthesis. Yeah, I've done things like I've changed some strings. That's worked. I think changing function signatures was a bridge too far.
Yeah.
So we're coming up here, and here we are. We can now start our orchestration. We're going to go to Visual Studio Code's little, I like this thing. I like Postman too. Don't get me wrong. I'm not dogging Postman. I'm not dogging any of those things. I even like the other popular REST client in Visual Studio Code, that Thunder client. But there's something I like about this being just a plain old file. So I'm going to send that request. It's going to start our orchestration up. And here we go. So we come in. We're going to generate a GUID. And that GUID is, well, for one thing, I'm actually wondering if this is kind of wonder if did I not generate a GUID? I said new GUID. I'm not 100% sure that isn't the orchestration killing me here, but let me see. If I say new GUID to string, no, did I not generate it correctly? Is
I'm
it
looking it up too. So, oh, there's GUID.new GUID.
okay? Thank you. So I'm supposed to say, am I supposed to say, is it a static function like this?
Yeah. Yeah, so you don't need the new.
Okay. All right. GUID dot new GUID, which is a function, a method. Okay, so I was doing that wrong. Now we're doing it right. Good. Good. That's a good thing.
Cool.
We're going to go start that orchestration again. You know what's funny? The other orchestration should come back to life, I think.
Oh, because why
I
would
mean,
that be?
I killed it, but maybe not. Maybe not. I've seen instances, Azure Write may have also restarted too. So let's
Yeah.
not worry about it. That's something I want to explore another time. I haven't gotten to explore that too, because in the real Azure Functions world, I don't see why I don't know. I'm not 100% sure. But I may have also killed Azure Write. So what's our GUID? Our GUID is 8026, and we are going to go ahead and call the output function, which is going to, I'm sorry that it blinks there, but we're back in our orchestration again, but this time the GUID is C99F, CD9F. It's not 8026. And if I head out to our window, I was writing out saying hello to Tokyo on GUID 8026 DE23. But the next time through, we're going to call these activities and it's saying hello to Seattle on a different GUID. So if I was relying on that being the same, I'm done.
Yeah.
It's broken. Not going to work. So, it turns out, however, and I'm picking on GUIDs for a reason. GUIDs are, I'm sure the folks who were inventing this said, like, it's pretty important for people to create new GUIDs. So what if we had our own new GUID method that lives on the orchestration context?
Okay.
So this is a safe method to call. You still get a GUID, so I can still toString it in this case so that it can work with our tuple down there that's expecting a string. And just like the safety of this method, the call activity async, this one is going to make sure that I get the same GUID every time. In fact, I think if I say context.newGUID, oh, I didn't get any IntelliSense telling me that. But let's watch it, because this is cool.
Interesting.
I think it's
Yeah.
cool. All right, so once that's done, once it fires up here, okay, we're ready. Let's start it, and then I'm gonna. Here we go. It's on its way. We hit our first breakpoint in the starter, which we don't really need that breakpoint anymore in the starter. We just want to watch the orchestration. So the orchestration comes in, empty outputs list. We're going to generate a GUID. We can all remember 3700. That's a nice, easy one to remember to start. We are going to call the function for Tokyo and then end up back in our orchestration, just like we've seen before. And when we call to say, get me my new GUID, it's still the 3700 GUID. I think that's cool. That's very useful.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of things in this world where you just want to generate you want to generate this random thing, but you want it to be data for the life of the orchestration. It turns out I saw this about, hey, generate new GUIDs this way, and I said to myself, yeah, when am I going to have to do that? And it was like 5 minutes, and I was like, oh, wait a second, hold on, this is useful. This is really useful. You might want to write out to a queue a result, and you might want to give that result some ID. And what better way to do that than with a GUID, right? So,
are there, in the durable orchestration context, are there other similar kind of constructs that you might need to call into play here?
Yeah. In fact, I know you didn't mean it, but it's like you had the script. So that's cool. That's cool.
Sometimes that works out that way.
Yeah. So here's another one. What if, remember we were talking about monitor? What if I want this orchestration to sleep for 15 seconds? Well, but I want it to be like 15 seconds from now. And it's like, well, wait a second. How do I actually, let me see about that. Let's see. It's in, so in context, we've got new GUID. We've also got, what do I want? I want create timer. Let's see. Yeah, it's create timer that I want. So create timer. Oh, but here's the other one. Current UTC date time. Okay. If I want the date time, do not go out to date time and get it from there. Get it from current UTC date time, and we'll hang on to this one. Okay, we'll hang on to this because we're gonna try some stuff here. So now I'm asking the context to give me the current time. We'll watch and see what it looks like. So let's do something interesting. Let's say after calling the activity, I'm not sure how useful this is, but let's try this. What if I said create timer, and I can hand it a date time to fire at? Well, don't I want the UTC date time? And let's add 15 seconds. Okay.
Okay.
Now, what if I do that again? To be honest, I actually haven't really tried this. So I've used create
though, isn't it?
I'm sorry, what?
Isn't there a red squiggle?
Yeah, there is a red squiggle. Great catch. Let me zoom in a little bit. Great catch, because create timer is returning a task.
Ah, so we got to await the task.
And so we're going to await the task. You can do other things besides await it, like if it's useful for you to. What are you complaining about here? Oh, no overload takes one argument. Yes, that's true. That's true, because it wants a cancellation token, and we're going to cancellation token, which is not included. So I've got to use system.threading. We're not going to pass one, which should be okay. Let's see if we can show a scenario where you absolutely do want to pass a cancellation token. So what I want to happen here is I want Tokyo to call right away, and then I want it to wait 15 seconds to call the second one. But I don't want it to wait 30 seconds to call the third one, meaning I don't want it to come back in here and say, oh, well, we got to wait 15 seconds and then we got to wait 15 seconds. I want it to cruise through.
Because so the ones it's already called, right?
Yeah. I want it. So I did that wrong. I'm pretty sure this is going to work right. Or I want to say, let's call the timer at 15 seconds for number 2, and let's call it again at 30 seconds, but use this time. So what I believe I'm going to see is we're going to get this time once and only once, but this might be a learning experience for me. So let's find out.
Yeah.
Okay, let's start it. And here we are, beginning. We're going to zoom through a little bit quicker since we've seen some of this stuff before. Did I not F10? Oh yeah, we're going to create our GUID that's actually safe. It's always going to be D15. And let's get this time noted. Oh, thinking. Okay. So our time is 2:10:13 a.m. 2:10:13 a.m. Let's see how we do here. So I may not get this done in time because I've got the clock is already kind of ticking on getting down to that timer. But let's just see if it comes back again with the same exact. Yeah, 2:10:13 a.m. So that's the point. The point is, programmatically, I want this time to be the same. Logically, I know in my brain I want it to be the same, but it's not going to be if I don't use the context dot current UTC date time. So, of course, this create timer is going to fire like instantly because we're well past the 15 seconds. But what's great about it is I'm getting the same date time every time. Oh, now see, I didn't
Right.
that time. That's interesting. I can't explain that one. And see how the timer, it's just like rebounding here.
Mm-hmm.
So what happened? Well, no, we went by it. No. Oh, yeah, we got by it to the function hello. Well, now we're down to here. But I was like super excited that I understood this. No, look at that.
Well, there's that back.
Was it a different orchestration? Did I accidentally run this more than once?
That's what it seems like, right? Because
Kind of does. It kind of does. But I think it's done now. We did get a chat from it says a first time chat. I'm gonna try pronouncing that as Count Oren. So hello, thank you for joining us. Sometimes you don't know, right? Because it's not.
yeah.
But we'll go with that.
Yep.
So I'm not 100% sure if I accidentally fired the orchestration twice, but let's run it again, but without. I'm gonna run it without the breakpoints this time, so that what we can do is maybe watch it in the window instead.
Sure.
And at least I think so. Did I start it? I didn't stop it, did I? No.
No, it's still going.
Oh wait, stuff's happening now. Hmm. Now I've done it though, because so we've got the Seattle, I don't see the Tokyo. There's London, Seattle. I don't
Well,
think
it
I
does
have
have
enough
to wait 30 seconds, right?
I don't think I have enough logging for me to tell what's going on, but I do see that I'm at 1331 and 1346 for Seattle
And that
and
right now you
the
got to get to
but Tokyo's the first one
1445.
though. That's the thing that's weird. Is if we go back to the code, Tokyo's the first one. That should have
Oh,
gone first.
good point.
So let's try it again. Outputs that add await context and then create a timer. So if I send the request and then head back over here. Oh wait, yeah, here it is. Saying hello to Tokyo. That already happened. That happened just now. I think that's already done. Programmatically called. So that happened at 1440, and then at 1455 we got Seattle. And then I wonder if the breakpoints cause some problems there in terms of I don't know though. I don't know. I don't want to make excuses for it. I could always write the that date time out each time just to see what it looks like. And there's London and it's about it's
20, 25.
25 seconds or so.
Yeah.
But it's 30 seconds from 1440, isn't it? No, it's 40 seconds away. Interesting.
Yeah, that's odd because the first timer held up at 15 seconds and the other one was a little early.
Yeah, I wonder. The thing that's interesting though is that when you logging here is logging out information. So let's talk about logging. I mean, why not talk about logging? Because here's something that's interesting too. You asked about what other things are important to know. There is a replay safe logger that you create, and you pass in pass in a logger, and you get back, I think you get back logger. I think you get back to logger. Let's look. Now, obviously, it's like you don't have one, but yeah. So I get a replay safe logger by saying, okay, context, give me a replay safe logger, and then you get it by dependency injection, which by default is already hooked up. This is already wired up in in um in Azure Functions. So I didn't wire this up at all. So yeah, we're just exploring Azure durable functions tonight, and we were kind of taking a deep dive into let's watch this thing work, so that maybe maybe we'll have a better understanding of it when we go to maybe implement something else. So, again, thanks for chatting with us. We love comments, we love questions, and if you're watching on Twitch, you're watching us live. If you're watching on YouTube, you might be watching us live right now, but you could also be watching us in the future. And if you're watching in the future, thanks for watching this video. If you've made it this far, then that's awesome. And make sure you hit the like button so we know that you like this kind of video. And hey, subscribe to the channel too, and you'll see every time a video gets posted. So, what more do we learn from here? I'm not sure. We've got the replay safe logger, so let's use it. Let's quit this so we can take a look. What I'm not sure about here, though, is if you're looking for... Let's go ahead and log. And we'll log information, and we'll say... I'm not sure we're going to get this each time, though. Actually, I don't know. I guess we're going to find out.
We should at least have the value.
Do I want the toString to be... There's probably one of these that I want. I probably want like two long time string, maybe. I don't know. Try that.
Sure.
Is that a method?
Still need to...
That is a method.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's see what happens here. Does the replay safe logger log this every time, or does it say, I'm replaying, I'm not going to log again? That's what we're going to find out.
Okay.
And yeah, let's find that out. Whoops. I came to the top of the method, which is no big deal. What did I do? What did I do that made it say then now there's build errors? Oh,
the logging extension may not be included, or it's not the right version.
It's complaining here that there's an assembly mismatch. See that?
Yeah.
Okay. So, is this a manage NuGet packages to the rescue? Maybe. Of course, nothing can go wrong by doing this right now.
Of course.
Yeah, see, sure, fine. Yeah, build succeeded. That's all you got to do. But I'm thinking, so what I'm thinking is that if we would have really dug in here, we would have seen a mismatch of dependencies between the project file and probably one of the frameworks underneath, like the durable task framework or something. And we basically just said, just use the latest. and it was like, yeah, sure. Cool. Now you're good. So, you know. Let's execute this, send the request. Yep, oh, it's still going. Okay, so we got our current time at 2:20:49.
Okay.
We said hello to Tokyo, and I think we're on that pause now, the create timer, the first one, pausing at 20:50. So we're hoping that we come back to life around 21:05. I will say this, I don't know that the timers... I don't know that I would take too much out of it. I don't think that they're like pointless, but I don't know that they're guaranteed. I'm not sure what the... So notice that we did not log the current time again. And we logged we ran Seattle and London pretty quickly there. It's almost like Seattle took some time to get kicked off, but then London got in close to the 30-second mark. Seattle
Interesting.
seems to be about 10 seconds late. Why? You know, I am using a storage emulator, because I'm doing everything locally.
Right.
I'm not sure what the guarantees are on timers, just to be frank. I just don't know.
Yeah.
And if we went and put this up in Azure Function land, like we put it up on Azure, would we see a much different experience? So, but I'm not making excuses. We do this stuff to find out. But the
Yeah.
replay safe logger was smart enough to say the second and third time through, I'm replaying, so I don't need to log.
Yeah.
I find that interesting. So, what else? What else? How about Visual Studio Code?
Okay.
Not that different of an experience, in my opinion. I'll go ahead and close Visual Studio so that if it is hanging on to an Azure Write, I think that's going to take care of that. So what I can do is I'm going to open that very same folder that we created tonight, Durable Functions. I'm going to open this exact same folder. Is it in here? Yep. I think it's in here. Let's open this. Do I want to save the changes that I made? Nah, I'm not going to worry about it. And here we go. What happens is, what do I have installed? Just to be clear, I installed the Azure Tools extension because it's an extension pack with a lot of cool stuff. You get Azure Functions extension, and then you also get some other extensions like Azure Storage and so on, which are they super useful for what I'm doing right now? Well, kind of, because I can go to this new Azure tab and I can look at my attached storage accounts and I can see the local emulator. So that's kind of cool, except that the emulator seems to be off. So I do believe that it was tied to the Visual Studio instance. I think Visual Studio started it and owned it. I'm pretty sure about that.
Makes
So
sense.
I just think just installing the whole Azure Tools pack was helpful. And then let's go back. Here's my Durable Functions project. All I did was open the same folder that the project was in. And then it did give me a notification that I ignored. So if that ever happens to you, by the way, here's a good tip. Oops, I didn't answer the notification. Oh no, what do I do? Click on the bell because I didn't clear the notification either. So detected an Azure Functions project in the folder. Should I initialize it for Visual Studio Code? Yeah, sure, let's do that. And what is that doing? It's creating a VS Code folder and putting in the launch JSON and what extensions should you have and all that stuff, which is really cool. So that means I'm ready to go ahead and just run and debug. And we're going to watch what happens is it says, hold on a second. I checked to see, it says failure to verify Azure Web Job Storage connection specified in local settings JSON. Is the local emulator installed and running? So it's like, I looked for local and do you want to just debug anyway? And I don't believe it's going to work. So let's go look at what they're talking about. In your Azure Functions project, you're going to have this local settings JSON file. You can use this to override or to basically put in values that you're not going to put in when you push this up to the cloud. In the cloud, you're going to have the real storage. You're going to put a connection string to the real Azure storage account that this is tied to. But when you say use development storage equals true, it says, okay, let's go fire up Azure Write.
Mm-hmm.
But it couldn't. Or not that it couldn't, it said, I don't see it. So if I say debug anyway, I think what happens is our terminal opens and it's going to build the project. And I think what we're going to see here is it's going to try to start the runtime, and you're going to recognize the runtime. It fires up the core tools. You should recognize the runtime, and then I think what happens is it just says, oh, I didn't see storage anywhere. what's wrong with you people. So I'm pretty sure that's what's coming.
Interesting. Because
Yeah, go ahead.
go ahead.
Well, I wanted to see
I
what
mean,
you
one
said.
possible thing it might have done, because I've seen other services do that, is where you basically do in-memory storage.
Yeah. Right. So, yeah, this isn't going to work. It's going to blow up. It can't find Azure.
You already know.
I mean, we could sit and wait for it, but it's a wait.
Okay.
So here it goes. Here we go. The clue here, I kind of wish the clue was a little better. It tells you no connection could be made because the target machine actually refused it, because it's looking for the default location for Azurite, port 10,000. Right. I wish it was a little smarter to be like, hey, you probably don't have your storage emulation running. So it gives up. Everything ends. The functions extension was smart enough to say, you didn't get going in 60 seconds. I'm going to kill this debug session. That's kind of helpful. So where does this live? Well, where it lives, it turns out, the Azure Storage Emulator lives all the way down this deep path. You're going to love this. In your Visual Studio, if you are relying on your VS22 install, I want to make that clear. If you're relying on that install, it's way down a rabbit hole. I can start it from here, and in fact, have tested that. I have tested just I did it before the show. I have tested just coming in here and doing nothing more than running azurite.exe, and then you can see you get this blast of everything that happens. But I want to try something else, because I believe that there is what you're supposed to do. So, if I start it myself, works fine. Let's say you don't have Visual Studio. If you were here a couple weeks ago, you saw me working in Linux. I'm not going to have Visual Studio there. You install Azurite separately. You're going to have to get that thing fired up. Well, there is an extension that I have not tried. I was waiting for the show to try it. Called the Azurite extension. I think what this does is I think this drops it as an extension into VS Code. So it's still not the same thing as running it there in the console, but I think it kind of makes it where, like, hey, you're in VS Code, you got this extension, it's going to work. I think. I could be wrong about that, but I think I'm right about this. I think it just drops in Azurite as an extension. So we're going to install it. The only caveat the reason why I'm using that as a caveat is I would hate to find out later that what it really does and goes and finds my Azurite install. But I don't think it does, though. I'm almost positive. So it's installed. We could go test this on the Linux VM. We're going to run it. We're going to run our project again. Oh, except it said it failed to verify. So tell me, how do I work? Do I do something? Oh, sorry. I should probably run some Visual Studio Code commands. It's even trying to help me. Azurite start. I think that I read somewhere that there's a way you can put something into your project so that it'll do this. I feel like I read this. But let's go ahead and do what they're saying here. Let's go Azurite and let's say start. Let's start. Starting Azurite service. Wow, that came and went really quick here in notifications, but it does say it's successful. So I think we're good to go now. But I'm pretty sure that I read about how to add something to, I don't know if it's your launch.json, your task.json, so that basically it's going to fire it up for you. It's going to be like the experience we had in Visual Studio.
Yeah.
Oh, it even says down here, Azurite service is running here. The blob service is running here. So it's, you get some help. It's coming up. Everything's coming up. Everything is working. Here's what I would like to do now. I would like to say, oh yeah, look at this. That's cool. So it's using this exact same folder for the Azurite storage. It's just doing it right here. Huh. Yeah, see, one of the things, I didn't do it on purpose because I wanted to see if it could make it work on the show. Look at that. So something I found that I liked doing is, I don't need any of this anymore, but this is my project, and look at, it's just writing stuff like crazy. This is nuts. Don't commit any of this. is, let's say I'm going to make another folder in my project called HTTP, and then I'm going to make a file in there called test APIs.htp. Why did I call it test APIs? Doesn't matter. What's important is I used HTTP so that it works with that other extension we talked about tonight. And let's grab this and let's drop it here. Now, something we haven't seen before is if you do nothing more than just drop a URL in, this extension picks it up and says send request. I can do more. I can say, let's do a get request. And I can do things like this. I can say, let's say it's content type application JSON. And I don't actually need to pass anything in just yet, but I can just do this. And it's going to pick all this up. It's really cool. So I click send request. Request went off and running. And right down here, we're already getting, we've already done the Tokyo one, and our timer has begun. But there's something I kind of like about it being integrated here, where like there's the function panel, there's the response, there's the HTTP. Like that's kind of neat.
Yeah, there's less bouncing around to see all of this.
Yeah. Works in Linux. So, heck, should work on a Mac too, right? Visual Studio Code. So,
Runs on a Mac, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm going to get rid of this. Once we're through this one, we'll get rid of these timers, which I think we're done. So let's go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead while we're doing
just
that.
Talking about places where it works. Have you tried to run it in a container?
No, I haven't yet. I haven't.
I'm calling
pretty
back
sure.
to
Like last week, yeah.
Yeah.
I think so. I think it would work. Let's get rid of these timers here. I don't need the response right now. We don't really want this timer to go much anymore. But let's do the next thing, something we haven't dealt with yet. As you can see, I'm also getting some GitHub Copilot here, where it's like looking at my code and it's like, you keep talking about like Tokyo and returning. So anyways, this particular function didn't have any input, right? We haven't talked yet about what if I want to send something in. And
sure.
So we haven't done this at all. And now I'm going to have to remember how to do this. But I believe the way we do it is we say, whoops. Seeing that she went out there. Is we say var. Let's call it a greeter. And oh, it figured it out for me. Thank you. So I say context.getInput string. So it's saying, okay, I'm expecting someone to hand me a string. If it was a queue message, it should be a queue message with a string payload. If it was some table storage, it should be a string payload. Mm-hmm. So we're in HTTP, so I'm going to send a string payload across. And what do I want to do is I want this orchestration to get input, and I want it to, let's go ahead, because we haven't done enough here. Let's go ahead and add the greeter. So we've added a third bit to our tuple here. You know what else I love? Remember how in Visual Studio, I didn't see that I was done with my parentheses, but with the colorization.
Oh, nice.
I wouldn't miss it. And now I don't remember if I'm getting that from an extension or am I getting that
I was just going to ask.
Yeah, well, we were talking about that on the show here. And what I don't remember is, did this just make it into Visual Studio? Because Visual Studio Code recently has added some more. Yeah, I think this is just in the product now. Or maybe I did change that setting. We'll have to go look in a little bit. So now we're passing in the greeter, which means I need to add to my tuple here. And for people that are wondering, why am I using a tuple? Because call activity async, if you're a little late joining us, when I call an activity in a durable function, I only get one object to pass. And so I could go create a class for this, but just to keep things quick, just adding to the tuple. So let's say that the greeter, so input.greeter is saying hello. That's how we're going to do this. The greeter is saying hello. So we're ready to go. The only thing we need to do, though, we need to change this test API because we have to pass in a string. So I love how I could just plop that right there. So at least, I need to change this to a post too, right? Otherwise right. It's not doing anything. So I want to post as application JSON. I just want to pass this in. I should be able to send the request. Header name must be a valid HTTP token. Okay. Hold on. I didn't think I had to do that. I didn't think. I thought it could just be the body, but am I wrong? No, see, that's not going to work. I don't think it's going to work. What if I just say this? You like that? No, it doesn't like it. Header name. Okay. Let's look at the examples. Yeah. That's not it. That was the wrong answer, Copilot. There are examples. If I go to the extension REST client, we look at they give examples down here. So let's go look. Content type application JSON, and then they do go ahead and drop. Okay.
Name value pairs, yeah.
Yeah. Content type app. Okay, let's try it. What I was concerned about is I'm concerned that I can't just do this though. Like in terms of durable functions, liking it. Header name must be a valid HTTP token.
Well, isn't it?
Oh, you know what the problem is this, isn't it? Because I was a fool and made it uppercase.
Okay.
No, don't listen to me. What do I know? I'm not told. Oh, well, nothing's running. So maybe the blank line is the issue. Blank line. Blank line.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, don't listen to me. I don't know what I'm talking about half the time. So here we go. Let's run our durable function project. At least now it's trying. Earlier it was like,
Right.
I don't know. What do you want me to do here? Okay, and then we will send this request. And, oh, I did not get out my answer. See that? It doesn't know. Doesn't know who the greeter is. Let's go. That means, you know what that means? That means we've got to step through some code. I don't want you here, though. Let's see what happened. Okay. So now let's go execute this. We should hit our breakpoint. So here we are in Visual Studio Code hitting breakpoints.
Mm-hmm.
And if I say context.getInput and I got the big old nothing. Okay. So let's figure out what happened here. We may have to go to the docs.
I think so.
If we can lick this, then maybe that'll be our show.
What?
If we can lick this, maybe that'll be our show, right? Oh, well, here's a Stack Overflow person saying, but let's see bindings for durable functions, okay? Orchestration, trigger behavior, trigger usage, inputs. Orchestration triggers can be invoked with inputs. All inputs must be JSON serializable. So they say here the simplest input here, kind of similar to what I'm doing, I think. But they, I wish they would have showed. Oh, they are showing. No, they're not. You know what?
Right. Did that come from a query string or did that come from?
You know what I think the problem is?
What's that?
I think I forgot an important step.
And that is?
The HTTP trigger is what's getting this thing down here. This triggers what's getting the post. I didn't pass it along.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You need to persist out the variable.
Yeah. So how does this work again? Where I say the request dot body. Is that it? No. Wait.
No, can't you just call the context? I mean, it looked like from the example you call the context get input.
Well, so here in the starter, I'm getting this is just an Azure function.
I'm sorry. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. So I've got to get this out first.
Yep. So,
I'm not getting help here though.
um, is there a dot body?
That's what I was hoping. It's not liking it though. Content?
Yes. Yes. Content.
But it comes out as HTTP content, so it's not. That's not good enough.
But then you've got to do the string reader thing. So if you do dot get.
I wish I was getting a little bit more IntelliSense here. So HTTP request message, which is from. Okay. Let's see if I can get some help from. Just because I forget how to do this stuff. Let's see. Do you remember how to do this?
It's been a bit. I'm trying to reload it back into my memory here. You know, it.
Okay, I see it.
Yeah.
I see it. So I can get the content and then say read as you were here. Read as async string, and then I can await this. And then say that.
But you got to pass it into something, right? Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I've got more to do. So now that I have the content, I think I need to say starter.set input. Oh, there isn't a set input. Starter dot. Oh, starter dot start new async.
What's the second property there?
There's a couple overloads, and one of them is T input. So I think I do this. I think that's it.
Okay.
We're gonna find out.
Yep.
So why don't we watch this happen? Because yeah, your orchestration, you might want to pass something in. You might want to pass in, let's say it's the let's say you're gonna call out to you're gonna have Azure Databricks run a workbook. Well, which workbook? I don't know. And then what you want the orchestration to do is you want it to call Databricks, and then you want it to periodically check on how it's doing. And when it says it's completed, you want to return you want to then call Databricks back and say, so what was the answer? And then return that. And that could be your orchestration. And what if that Databricks workbook takes hours? Well, perfect. Durable orchestrations is perfect for that. So let's, it'd be nice to have that example going, right? So here we are. We called this method. Except for the hours part. People don't want to wait hours. And I'm finally getting my string content. There it is. There's my name. So do I have a breakpoint up here? I do. So now I'm just going to F5 up to it, and our orchestration has begun. And let's see if the input comes through. No, it didn't come through. Oh, I was really hoping that was it.
Do we think it's part of the context object?
Orchestration. Oh no, look at that. It started an orchestration with the ID of my name, which is not what I wanted. So I picked the wrong overload for sure. Because you can start orchestrations with your own custom IDs. We didn't really talk about that.
Okay.
But you can. Otherwise, if you don't, they get a GUID that's generated. So let's see what's going on here. I've got one overload where you pass the instance ID. Then I've got another overload. Oh, where you pass it as a tuple. See that? Is that right? No. Is that just not great? No, a T of input. Interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, you know why? Because I didn't put the generic. Okay, it didn't pick this. The reason it didn't pick this method is because this method doesn't have a generic. I
Yeah.
don't know what you
Nice.
call that. Modifier. That's probably not right. So it says, oh, this is the method you want where you're going to override the instance ID. No, I want this method where I want you to take the input, but I got to tell it. I got to tell it that it's this particular. So I messed up.
Yeah.
So we're almost
What's
there.
the last one?
This is it. This is the trip home. This is the set of steak knives. Hold on. What's going on here? And here we go. Oh, come on, come on, come on. We're almost there. Now we could say, send the request. And here we are. We're going to get our greet. This is going to work. The greeter is, there it is.
Nice.
All right. So that's the trick. You can send an input. It doesn't have to be a string. It could be really complex type. Doesn't matter. You just got to get the generic correctly. And from here, it's just going to work. So let me get rid of the breakpoint. And now our durable function is saying that Chris is saying hello to Tokyo. Oh, look, it grabbed the whole thing. So here, I didn't have to put it in quotes. It's fine. No big deal.
That's
Do it again.
interesting.
Yeah, now it's doing what I want. Let me change this to the rich. So there it is. Like, how is that? Is that an intro?
That's a pretty deep intro there. There's a lot you uncovered, a lot you went through, and it shows why durable functions is different than just regular functions, and a lot of the great use cases there about why we might need them. You kind of wrapped in and walked through that, and the context construct that is really important here, right? Because state in a durable function matters.
Yeah. Like, my takeaways, if you're super excited to get started with durable functions, is pay attention to that context object in your orchestration. Learn about the methods on it that help you. They bypass what you normally would have gone somewhere else in the .NET framework for, in the .NET platform for, the BCL. And don't use those other things. I think we didn't get to some really interesting constructs that might make for great future shows. Like, if you want an orchestration that is going to do something and then do it again and then do it again and then do it again, while loops aren't really your friend, instead there is a concept called eternal orchestrations, which would be great to look at.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because your better orchestrations are going to be the ones that are just straight lines of code. A little bit of if-then branching, making a decision based on previous answers, that's okay. It's when you try to loop, that can be dicey, because then it can become so difficult to keep the deterministic nature of it straight, because every time you loop around, well, wait a second, you created a new cancellation token, but hold on, I wasn't supposed to change that every time. So those will be fun to look at, but there's a lot here, and it's really useful, and we're doing all of this locally. We didn't use the cloud at all. I believe that you can push this to the cloud and then remote debug it too.
Yes.
Yeah, so yeah. Look at that.
Nice.
That was fun.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, definitely a lot of fun. It was good to dig in there. It was some. I picked up a couple things that I was not aware of, so that was pretty. And it was nice the way you walk through the flow of it all, right? And because it's different than you would typically think about normal pattern of a flow of running, through the flow of an application.
I think what I learned is being careful. Like, it really was a different way of thinking that, like, oh,
Yeah.
this method's going to loop around. At first it's weird, and then you kind of get used to it. And, you know.
It's funny. There was a couple. I mean, this and there's another surface I was working with, and it was kind of the same thing, right? You had to until you got past whatever that mind hurdle was, it didn't make any sense. And then once you did, it's like everything lit up and opened up for you. It's like, oh, of course.
Yeah. Yeah. The only thing that is a little rough is I think real world examples really start to unlock what you can do. The examples where you're just running a method that just prints out to the screen, you're like, okay. But when you use it, when you really sit down and start using it maybe to run a complicated process in an automated fashion, that's when you go, okay, all right, I see where this is really cool. I've saved myself on building an executable that's going to manage all that state in some kind of loop. And then where am I going to store that state? And then I got to deploy that. And then I got to manage it. And then I got to scale it. And no, you don't. It's just all there. So
nice.
We'll look at that another time, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool. All right.
Right.
So the 17th. I think we're good for the 17th. I think so.
Yeah, you and I definitely are. Andy may or may not, but do we have a thought on what we're talking about then yet?
No.
I was hopeful.
You know, that's not, you know, what's unusual about that.
Right.
But hey, we know we had some friends in chat tonight. Thank you for joining us. Thanks for jumping in with any comments that you have. And don't forget, we are on Wednesday nights, 8:30 p.m. U.S. Eastern. It's always great to see you. And if you're watching us in the future on YouTube, thanks for hanging in to the end. Check out some more of the shows. You get real in-depth looks at things as we explore things just the way you would. And I think that's probably the favorite part of the show. So, Rich, if you're ready.
Let's go. Yeah.
All right.
I guess I'll do it. I took us in.
Yeah.
So.
Awesome.
Awesome. So, catch us again next week. Go check out the archives on youtube.com/The Dev Talk Show. And we'll see you all next Wednesday right back here. Have a good night.